So, I'm a maker. I'm passionate about visual culture, and I like to make things like infographics. But you know what? I think there's a type of infographic that is kind of a phony, fake infographic. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about why I hate them. So this is what you normally think of when you think of an infographic. So it's something that describes and explains using visuals and words in a way that's easily guiding the eye and describing something that might be unfamiliar. So I like to take things like looking at things like interesting robots and things and trying to find ways to kind of explain to you how they might actually operate or work, and make them a little bit more relevant to how to your own life. And I also do things like, I'm big into self-measurement and the self-measurement culture, so I like to kind of, there's something like my diet or running, kind of find ways to take big data and make it into kind of visual stories. But what I find when I think about infographics are these kind of really kind of gross collages of factoids that has a lot of visual rhetoric that is a little bit misleading. And it has a lot to do with just taking a whole bunch of very stray factoids and turning it into this kind of collage. And quite often, like you see the visual rhetoric, like 11 pilots were actually caught drinking. Would it really be moonshine? So, but this is all functioning as kind of clickbait, right? It's people trying to trick you into thinking this is substantive content, or getting you to click on something so you can see an ad. And I don't have anything against using infographics for business, but this is kind of a type of trickery. And also, there's this whole notion of garbage in, garbage out. So if you're not doing proper research, you're just yanking factoids off of Wikipedia or Gawker or something. You're not creating very rigorous information. Now, the first thing, one of my big peeves is this idea that every infographic has to have bubble heads. And there are 1,000 different ways to actually draw a figure. And I have to wonder why it has to be these unexpressive, boring bubble heads instead of someone like that. And you see I see a lot of this reusage of all of these generic web icons. Like, why would gears mean client support? Or headaches for bombs? Like, it's just reuse of these kind of really run-of-the-mill icons. But for some strange reason, there's this fetish among graphic designers to turn everything into a circle. And the thing is that humans have a hard time judging the areas of circles or length that's wrapped around a circle. And yet this has become kind of the strange fetish. Or they've turned it into this kind of really gaudy, over-the-top theme. Now, themes are very useful because they can orient our minds and kind of get us in the right mindset. But these have become sort of like Halloween costumes for data that really take a long time to decode. Or we use these chartoons, which it's good to have a bit of humor and levity and whimsy to presentation of information, but not if it kind of gets in the way and it doesn't match the seriousness of the subject matter, right? Also, we use these fake gauges and things from the real world, which can be very useful ways in which to kind of orient people, but quite often they make comparison very difficult, and also they don't really kind of match what the subject matter is. Or if you see picto charts, they often mislead because we're thinking about not just the height of these phones or this, we're also thinking about the area. So this might be twice as big, but it looks 6 times as large. So it's a type of exaggeration. Or you see these bizarre maps that show Hello Kitty mixed with NASCAR and dubstep and all of these weird things. And you're thinking to yourself, is this really presenting information in a tidy way that can be able to understand it? Or if I said to you, well, change management is really like a hamburger, with leadership as the bun on top, would that make any sense to you? But if I actually drew that, does that make more sense? No, it doesn't really. So we use these overwrought visual analogies. Or I see these things where we have these complicated data displays which have forced you to kind of look at things upside down and contort or squint, and really information should be presented in a way that makes things easier to understand. Or yes, we've got this era of big data, we see tons and tons of data being thrown on the screen, but it doesn't really, it's more of an info dump, and it doesn't really have any kind of information value. And I like to see these great experiments turned into something a little bit more practical. So this is my call to kind of bring this and take a look at infographics and to describe things and make them a little bit more relevant to things like grooving robots, for example, and finding ways to kind of make that more relevant and explaining exactly what that might do. And thank you very much.